Max Gorlin, Melbourne Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club.
Trent Cotchin from the Richmond Footy Club.
Scott Pendlebury from the Collingwood Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Patrick Cooch from the Carlton Footy Club.
It's Rory Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows.
This is Tom Mitchell from the Hawthorn Footy Club, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Hey friends, you got MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you're well and welcome back to our final pre-season episode before round one gets underway. Joining me on this episode, as he has a bunch of times, not just throughout this pre-season, but really ever since we started the Coaches Panel. I've got Rids on. Hello, buddy. How are you, man?
Hey, mate. How you going?
Oh, I'm good. Look, dude, we're here. We're a handful of days out from the start of the rolling lockout. It all gets underway on Wednesday evening with the grand final rematch. And really, it's the final few pieces of the puzzle we should be putting on our teams now before we get fully into it for the season.
That's it, mate. All the hard work's done. So we've just got a few days left, a few 50-50 calls, waiting for teams. Interestingly, the AFL have scheduled that Wednesday game, so we won't know the teams by Wednesday. So
no,
that makes it intriguing in itself.
Well, that's an interesting challenge, isn't it? Right there. Tuesday night, exactly, the Wednesday teams gets named. Wednesday night, the Thursday teams are named. We will get some small understanding as every club will want to give their debutants a moment in the sun. So we would get a good element of the amount of cash cows. But the guys we're 50-50 waiting on, such as a Wayne Millerer, we're going to have to wait till Thursday night and then confirm for the Sunday teams with the full squads on Friday night. So there are a lot of uncertainties between Tuesday night teams getting started right through to them being fully named and released on Friday.
And the worst thing about it is the Sunday teams are probably the most intriguing teams when it comes to the rookies, you know, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, Freo, Adelaide, Suns, West Coast. I mean, the West Coast could pull anyone off the street game this weekend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what a weird way to start the year, yeah?
It's going to give us some challenges, without any doubt. I want to go through a couple of things with your Rids in our final podcast for the preseason. Although that's not entirely true, our Patreons, they will get a cash cow guide podcast from me, walking you through, along with the booklet that is over 70 pages long this preseason. We will look through all of the big relevant cows, their job security and their scoring potential. So they've got at least one more podcast lined up. But I want to get to some of the questions that we've landed over the little bit. I want to talk about trade boost strategy. But Rids, let's go back right towards the very start of what you kind of alluded to at the very top of this episode. You said now is the time for these 50-50 calls that we need to be making. And I'm curious on your take. Is this 50-50 calls of like-for-like players such as Premium X or Premium Y? Or is it a combination of this cow and Stepping Stone versus Premium versus a combination of another cow, Premium, Stepping Stone? What are the 50-50 combinations that should be getting through coaches' minds over these final few days?
And there's going to be some one-on-one thoughts, you know what I mean? Like you're going, I've got a value option that I can afford at M4 or M5. And then you've gone, rightio, here's a group of 4 or 5 names. And you might have someone like, say, Neil, Sarong, let's say Crouch, and let's say Cripps, okay, as the 4. And let's just go off the top of my head. Oh, well, does that mean you jump on Cripps because it's a Thursday game because you get the teams on Wednesday? Mm-hmm. Or does that mean you're willing to wait to see the better matchups and the better, you know, there's a little bit of a backwards and forwards, just getting your gut feel on things. How, you know, I mean, myself, like included, I've been big on Sarong for the whole preseason.
Sure.
But I mean, I haven't gone cold on Sarong. I think he breaks out. I think he's a 3-year breakout option. I think he's going 100 plus, you know, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, there's a lot of other guys in the mix now that we would never have dreamt that we were going to be considering at this time of year, you know? Yeah, of course, Crouch was one of them. But let's think, Lockie Neal, we knew there was going to be money, but around that price tag. So we know, but there was questions, wasn't there? Is he going to play midfield? Is he going to play forward? Is he going to play wing? Is he going to be pushed out in the mix? Is he not? Like, who would have thought Paddy Cripps was going to come out and do what he's done in the last few weeks?
Destroyed it, yeah.
MJ, what about a Jai Caldwell? Only 2 weeks ago, Jai Caldwell was one of the most hyped players going into this. And now he's sort of like, people are starting to question, get cold feet. Maybe other people have appeared. Like Patrick Lipinski. Who would have thought Patrick Lipinski without DPP was going to absolutely jump out in a salary cap format? Like, I mean, I think in the draft leagues, you might have had a bit of a pump, you might have had a punt on him, thinking, oh, yeah, he's a good junior numbers. He's got this, he's got that, he's got history around that. He just needs an opportunity. But, I mean, this time last year, MJ, let's go back 12 months, okay? Let's rewind a little bit. Would you have ever considered in your wildest dreams that Aaron Hall, and if we were applying this year's rules to last year, would have been the number 1 defender for the year, or Jack Zeeble would have been?
Not a chance. Or a Tuke Miller as one of the best mids. Yeah.
Exactly, mate. Dyson Heppel jumped out, didn't he? After a very problematic injury-affected preseason.
Yeah.
Like, he had many years in a row, one after the other, where, you just couldn't start him with any confidence. And I think he even missed round 1 last year, or round 2.
It was an early game, yeah.
Yeah, but look at what he did, like when he did come in, It's like, this is the time of year where you go, oh, but you know what the problem is, MJ? Sometimes it's too long. So we start second guessing ourselves. We start listening to too much noise. So for me, I tend to just walk away at this time of year. I try to chill out. I back my gut. I've seen enough. I know what I'm after. But they're the combinations I'm sort of trying to work out, are the last minute things like, and we've spoken about rucks all year, so I don't want to speak about rucks, but like just say in the forward line, okay, we haven't seen Cam Rayner. We've heard a lot of noise about a Cam Rayner. We know he's going to get some midfield minutes.
Sure.
But was that the same sort of hype as a Zach Bailey that sort of turned into like a puff of smoke? Or, is Will Brodie, the noise that came out during this week's when Nathan Fyfe said, I am going to play pure mid now. I had my stint up forward last year. We know we can do that, but I'm going to play mid. What does that do for a Will Brodie? And MJ, let's go back 6 weeks ago. The number 1 hype mid-price defender was Darcy Tucker.
He was? Nowhere to be seen.
Nowhere to be seen. Like, is he even going to feature in any fantasy team at this point in time? This last 6 to 8 weeks has been an absolute whirlwind, There's no way known I would have predicted we're thinking of Paddy Cripps. There's no way known people were predicting that Matty Rao came out and looked like he did. Everyone was so apprehensive and worried, And like, the Priest, let's be honest, like a suspension last minute throws another spanner in the works. It's just been one of those preseason periods. And I sort of wonder whether we've had it good over the last 10, 15, 20 years by having multiple games in the preseason. So we get to see a lot. But what about a Wayne, I don't know, Millerer?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do we do there? Like, he was apparently came out in the practice match on the weekend and he's looked well. But then you've got Nick's coming out saying, well, he's fit, he's best 22, but we don't know if we want to rush him.
That's right.
How do you read that? Like, and this guy started as every D5,
D6 for every team. Yeah.
And it's like, well, can we start a guy like that with no
preseason? No, that's right.
So what a weird world we got. Like,
we do get to this point of the season. For some, there's a little bit of fantasy fatigue, which I know is crazy to sound before any footy's there, but they've looked at their team so much that now the finesse is not just a finesse. It is unplanned major surgery they're doing. Others find themselves making tweaks and going, oh, I actually like that restructure now more. And some are just, like you said, I'm waiting for the cows to get named, and that's all I need to do. So everyone finds themselves at these really different places and spaces in these final few days. I think you've given some really nice advice, though, to help coaches process through some of those challenges. I think the biggest key takeaway I could give people, and again, we'll get to some Patreon questions. I want to talk trade boost in a sec for DT and Supercoach players. But one of the best bits of advice is if you look at your team and you don't like your team, change your team. If there's things about it, you go,
it's okay to change your mind.
Absolutely. And change the structure at this point too. Enough's moved in the past 72 or 48 hours, and it will again. There will be a cow this week, Rids, that we are all bullish on playing that won't get named for one reason or another. There's another one that we didn't think would be in the best 22 and pop. This will happen, and it does every year.
Yeah, you think about it already, just in the last week or so, okay? What does a Nathan O'Driscoll, who's been a feature in every team across the preseason, at least once in every team, I don't think he gets a role in round one, you know? So, I mean, where does he fall? But did anyone have a Kane Baldwin, for instance?
That's about, with Harry Jones out now, he feels like he's in, yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like that, you know? Sam Hayes, like, I mean, I know he's very, very raw, and we sort of were hopeful without going too much. But like Charlie Dixon's had a bit of an interrupted preseason.
Sure.
We've got, you know, there is a bit of noise around, and there's a bit of a feel that he may end up debuting round one.
True.
Like, I mean, is he the answer to all? Like,
and then we've got some SSP guys like a Paddy Nash, who a week and a half ago wasn't even in consideration for the AFL. Now he's likely to run out for the Eagles, who are decimated with injuries this coming weekend.
It's absolutely ridiculous how quick this turns, yeah? And and the other thing is there's a bit of unknown. Now, let's not worry about AFL Fantasy for that part.
Sure.
With Supercoach and Dream Team, we've got trade boosts. We've got new positions being added through the year. There's a little bit of unknowns about this, and no one knows exactly what they're going to do with these COVID supplementary
protocols,
player lists. And like, I mean, are we going to introduce everyone as a bargain price? Like, I mean, in the formats are going to have to be very much on their toes and adding these guys as they come. But are they only a 1 week proposition? Are they a season proposition? Are they going to stay on their list until whoever they there's a lot of uncertainty across the board. Like, I mean, let's be honest, all pre-season we've been thinking, lock in Hugh Dixon. They've got no tall forwards.
Yeah.
Only just recently, and it was a bit of a hype, Jack Darling came back. Oh, he's vaccinated. He's back at the club. Oh, you beauty. 1 minute later, he's out injured for 4 weeks. He's injured. And it's like, oh, God, like, how are we going to work all this? Tom Joyce looked like he was going to be almost the most selected player in the across all the formats. And he really was. But now he's injured. He's pretty much going to miss the year, the poor bugger, with a broken ankle. But this is what I'm saying. It's such a topsy-turvy year, pre-season, and we haven't even got to it. But no wonder people have got burnout, with this sort of stuff. And, you know, everyone that's listening to this podcast will probably understand what I'm going to say. This is the time of year everyone's on a forum, on a Facebook group, on Twitter, always talking about fantasy. And it's non-stop information. They're going to tweet this guy, this happens, that happens, more noise, this is going on. It's exhausting, MJ. This is like a 24/7 job. And I know you know that better than anyone. But, it's just exhausting just to get ready to play a game. And it's only a game. So, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what these next handful of days land for us. If any Bulldogs or Demons are dropping any debutants, I don't know if the Demons will. I think the Dogs are a chance, with McComb potentially rolling through there. Maybe Jones, depending on what their tall stocks look like. We may see as early as Monday AFL clubs starting to drop their social media factors of announcement of player debuts. One thing we will do for you here at the Coaches Panel is at coachespanel.tv, bookmark an article. It's already up on the website, so you can get it and grab it now. So before teams get announced, once a player is confirmed to debut, that article is going to have all the sources and where you can find it so that you can actually build that structure out, because that is now the missing piece of the puzzle that might determine structures, that might determine 50-50s or the 30-30-30 call that you've got to make is which cow is playing and where. So that article's already up for you now at coachespanel.tv. You can go and check it out. You can bookmark it so that any time between now and Thursday night teams getting fully confirmed and revealed, that's going to be your true source of what cows are playing, not just rumored to play. Because there are ones that we know should, barring something happening on the training track in the next 72 hours. We'd all be shocked if a Nick Dacos, if a Rochelle, if a Ward, if a Horn Francis. We would all be shocked if they don't get named. But there's going to be some that don't, and there's going to be some that do. And that's okay. That's why that article at coachespanel.tv hopefully just helps you with some last minute finessing that you've got to do. Speaking of finessing and some of the changes to the game that's come, especially for Dream Teamers and Supercoach reads, before we get to some Patreon questions, I'm keen on your take. The trade boost is another interesting dynamic that this format of Dream Team and Supercoach has to navigate. Not just the DPP gains that they've never had, but now the trade boost, where any round from round 2 to 23, they can have an additional boost available to them, but only in 5 separate rounds. So in the bye rounds, they can have up to 4. In all the other rounds, they can have 2. You can't just go boost, boost, boost and get 6 trades in a week. It won't let you do that. It will only be an additional trade. I suppose the question I've got, Rids, is we'll know in hindsight what the right approach is, but should we be saving these boosts for the rainy day at the back end of the year? Or should we be getting aggressive with them if it can help turn some extra cash generation or points on field early?
So this is where it gets really, really interesting. This is a new feature. I actually don't mind it. I was a little bit at the start, but I actually have come around a little bit to it. I actually think it leads to a little bit of strategy. It also leads, like you can have deep benches, okay? So when COVID hits and other teams have to use a trade boost to get their own 22 on, in their team on the ground that are playing for the week, then, and you might have a deeper bench where you can bring on a Sin or a Ward or a McCartan or whoever it is, okay? It actually leads to a little bit of strategy a little bit later in the season. So, and then it's also interlocked with the DPP additions, I think, as well. Now, a lot of times with the limited trade formats, you'll find that it's very, very difficult to restructure through the year. If you've got, let's just say it's round 18, and you've got your six defenders that you believe are going to be your best for the year, and that's going to be your keepers for the remainder of the season. And then they come and add someone who's actually better than your 6. Does that mean you now need to explore the possibility of bringing them in? Like, there's a lot of let's say a lot of strategy about this, but also a lot of uncertainty. So I actually think they're both aligned. Okay.
Yes.
So the trade boost may very well be perfect for that sort of scenario where you're not quite happy with who the D6 is. Let's say Hewitt. You are going to leave Hewitt as a 85-90 defender for the year. You get someone that comes in who's 100. Let's say who's been spruiked as a defender these days. Pendlebury comes in, okay?
Sure.
And he's averaging 100. And you're thinking, well, there's still 10 games left. That's 10 points extra, around. There's 100 points. At the very least, if Hewitt starts slowing down or they work him out, you potentially could get 150, 200. That might be the time where you could actually activate a trade boost and make that change in that period of time.
Yeah.
So I have been trying to work out the trade boost for the better part of 2 months, MJ. And the uncertainty of COVID just means I don't know the right way to do this, because if you go too hard, you could be caught out. But if you don't go hard enough, you could be caught behind. So it's one of those really really, really intriguing. But what I do think could be interesting is exploring a deeper bench to be able to utilize that trade boost when it best suits your needs when the season comes. Now, who would have thought that we'd be sitting here talking about a Tristan Sherry, for instance? Okay. Now,
Nobody did.
absolutely nobody. And if you asked me 6 weeks ago, I'd say to you, well, he's third in line for the number one ruck at North, and he's an awkward price across the formats where, I think there's better options around that price point.
Sure.
Right? But he may, someone like him might become our superstar in the first 6 weeks, where he picks up his ruck DPP, and we might go, you know what, I missed him, but before he goes, like he's on the bubble or whatever else, I'm going to bring him in to have that Jack Hayes, Hugh Dixon swing when they're not best 22 anymore. And suddenly you've also got a VC loophole option as well in that rucks then. So it's a really, really interesting thing with these trade boosts. I personally think, and I always do think this way, you know what I've like, you've been playing with me for the, better part of 10, 15, 20 years or whatever else. I like to attack.
Yeah.
So I like to use everything and attack when you can. So I'll be probably using a trade boost here and there in the first half of the season.
6-8 weeks.
Yeah, but I'm also one that thinks that I'm going to be in contention the majority of the year. And I think everyone would understand that might be arrogant, but that's how you got to play these games. You just
you want to be confident in your abilities.
The best. Yeah, you've got to be confident. But the thing is, I want to have one of these up my sleeve if I am chasing a top 100 or a top 10 or whatever else later in the season, because I think when clubs start putting some of these guys out to pasture, let's
Which
just
happens
say
every
the
year.
Crows.
Yeah.
Let's just say someone like the Crows, radio.
Yep.
You've had Crouch as in your midfield for the whole year.
M8 for your year, sure.
He's a bit sore with 6 rounds to go. Crows sort of go, you know what, we're not in contention anymore for the finals. We might just give him an early mark and let him freshen up for next year. He's done the heavy load. So, I mean, those sort of scenarios, is a Tuke Miller going to get a break? Although
same thing.
A bad example.
No, but it's the principle you're trying to explain. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like a Tom Mitchell might be a better object.
Sure.
I don't think Hawthorn's going to be in the finals calculations, but
it's fair.
Is it Tom Mitchell's, a bit sore? He's been a bit tender, Is he just going to get put into cotton wool? We see it every year, don't we?
Every year. With teams not contending or teams that are contending and want to get players right for finals. And so it'll be ultimately hindsight that'll be the greatest tool for us. But I think you need to use the trade boost for both approaches. If you're only thinking it's there as a safety net, you'll miss the opportunity to jump on multiple guys that could be the right price point and the week to attack. Conversely, if you only see it as an attacking tool, you might miss those opportunities where the best form of attack sometimes is defense, and by holding off. So it's going to be an interesting one that as we look back on the 2022 season, how it's used.
What it does do, though, is it really makes it more important to have those guys with the better job security on the bench. Like I just look at someone like Corey Durden, from Carlton.
Yep.
Now, I believe he's their best small forward.
I think that's fair.
I believe he's best 22 all day.
Yep.
Only injury is going to probably knock him out of that picture. He
That's
might
fair.
be a slow burn because he is a small forward. He might only average 30, 40 or whatever else. But guess what? That might actually help you, on one of those off weeks where you don't have to use the trade boost to fix up that COVID outs or whatever they're calling it, the COVID protocols.
Yep.
And he might just be enough to come in and score you that 30 or 40, or if you can get a 50 even. The guy's capable, yeah? So
yeah, no question.
they're the types that you've got to start exploring. So I think job security, albeit, this is always a bit flimsy with rookies and stuff,
Sure.
but just maybe it's worth going the guys that have the better job security, because I do think those green dots across your field they're going to be important this year.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice shout. I'm a big advocate in 2022 that depth in your bench is what's going to help you win it over the year, both in your starting squads and having to pay up. We are paying up for the best cows this year more than ever before. But the amount of red dots, not only do they kind of stuff up your cash generation, but ultimately it potentially risks any points on field. Albeit only a rookie flavored donut is definitely the one you'd rather taste. For me, I do think it's worth paying that little bit extra to be a little bit deeper in the backs, in the mids, in the ruck, in the forward line with your bench for these cows, because we're going to need them this year. Without a doubt, we will see guys pop in and out for a week or two with COVID protocols, but we want to see as much consistent cash generation as we can. So I'm with you. I think this is the year of deep benches more than ever before, where we'd sometimes throw away an M11 or we'd throw away an R3 or whatever it is. I just don't know if we can be prepared to throw away a spot this year.
Well, I think we can, but we have to be very cautious what line that falls on.
Yeah, fair shout. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so let's just say someone like a Jack Hayes, for instance, that might be your R3 to start the year because of DPP.
Yep.
But he's not going to be in their best 22 if Ryder and Marshall are both fit. And he may not even be in their best 22 if Marshall absolutely dominates and there's another young kid that drops in, and when I say young, someone like a Tom Campbell might pass.
Sure.
Because we're talking about Jack Hayes is only 190 something centimeters. That's pretty small for a second ruck, yeah?
Yes.
So I mean, there might be challenges throughout the year, but he might be the one that has the green dot from round one, which is great. But you can plan around him having a red dot more than green dots for the rest of the year, And if he doesn't, then you just bank it because that's an absolute win having a $150,000 player, in Dream Team or like rookie bottom priced rookie. Having playing continual games is an absolute win, especially this year, because we just don't seem to have that, do we? Especially in AFL fantasy. I'm looking at it and going, where are my $195,000 players?
Well, there's not many. You could probably argue DeConning's one of them, Hayes and Dixon.
But is he really? Is he really though, MJ? I mean, let's be honest.
I think he's got the Henderson role, but we didn't see Stewart or Henry. Yeah.
So Jack Henry's still to come back, and we know that he just recently played. So, I mean, even that, I don't know. I think there's enough question marks, like is it a Blick halves that goes back, and then with the Tui, I just don't know. And like the Conning's not really, he's not going to play a lockdown. Like he's going to be more of that Roman third
versatile
type.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just adds that versatility to a back line. But if Jack Henry's there, does that mean he's not there? I don't know. So
yeah, and that's the challenge.
And now, I thought Tom Joyce would have been perfect, yeah. But now that he's gone, it's like, is it just the Cooper Stevens? Like, is that all we're looking at now? I don't. And this is where it's going to get really, really challenging because we are spending up. Even a Connor McDonald, in the midfield in AFL fantasy, 240. That's 50,000 more. If you have 6 guys on your bench and you're paying 50,000 more than the 190, that's 300,000 you could utilise in points on the ground.
It's the gap in your forward line using AFL fantasy of a Cherry to Butters. Like that's the gap right there. It's a huge challenge that coaches are going to have to navigate. And so maybe what we can do, Rich, to wrap up this episode is we've got a ton of questions from our Patreons. We'll try to power through them as quickly as we can. Some are simple answers. Some I think we've answered along the way. So I'll try to navigate them, but I'll throw them out to you, man. Here we go. In Supercoach, is Lockie Weller a legitimate option over Zach Butters at F3?
Personally, no, but who knows, mate? I wouldn't have thought Aaron Hall was a legit defender option last year.
He's got the role. That's the key, isn't it? He's got the role.
Jack Bowles is out.
Mhm.
There's a few players out. He may very well play so well that I just don't trust him. Do you trust him?
No,
Do you trust Lockie Weller? I just don't
no,
trust him.
not if I've got a Zach Butters at a comparable price point. I'll go that. So
Yeah, but
I can see it though.
I trust Zach Butters. I just don't trust his body at times because the way that he plays the game is too kamikaze for my liking at times. But his role and his ball winning skill is I trust him.
Yeah, I agree too. No, I think it's fair. Next question is Bruce. Oh, we had to get to the rucks, didn't we? Is Bruce still a viable option despite the suspension? I think we answered that on last week's episode. So you can go back and check that out, mate. Here's an interesting one. Is Taranto's role still concerning coaches despite his massive score in the Amy Community Series?
Yes, because he played 80% forward in that score. Why are you looking at the score? Watch the game. So the worry is that he's playing that forward role until Toby Green comes back.
Yeah.
And MJ, I think it's a little bit more worrying that if he plays that role well, there's no reason why he needs to be pushed back into the midfield anytime
They're
soon
not
as
shallow
well.
on mids. They're not shallow on mids.
Yeah,
Shallow on targets forward of the ball.
I just don't think it fills me with confidence. If you're paying that much money for someone, you want them to absolutely have the role, but he doesn't.
I suppose the flip side is his time on ground will stay high.
Oh, 100%.
So he could still pop the score, but it's now dependent on what he does inside the forward 50 to score well, not around the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And there's every chance he pushes up to 90, 95% time on ground because he might play 30% in the midfield and then 65% up forward, resting up forward, and he may not need bench rest. So, I mean, he may make up for it that way, but that's a pretty... He's still got tape all over his shoulders. His body's been beaten up a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's question marks. Like,
I'm happy to trade into him, to be honest.
I just don't think he needs. Yeah, he's not value.
No, so trade into it. Yeah, take the risk out, trade into it would be my thoughts. Here's an interesting one in Dream Team: Rao versus Caldwell. Is it as simple as Rao? Next question, or is there something more to it?
No, it's that. It's Rao's got the role. He looks so good. He's got no tape. And back the kid. I mean, I like Caldwell, but I just think he's an injury. He needs an injury to get the right role for the majority of time.
Yep. No, I think that's fair. Next question is no. The answer is yes. We have to pay up for the cows. We just don't have the luxury of that. Next one, with Dawson's departure from the Swans, that attacking role he played on the wings is up for grabs. McInerney looked good on the weekend, but also so did Blakey. Who of those two do you feel is more likely to break out in 2022?
McInerney obviously is the answer, but I mean, I just think, you know what? There's a lot of guys there that are very, very, they've gone for leg speed, haven't they? And the speed of movement of ball.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit concerning for a Jake Lloyd that they've gone that way. But I think there's times where there's just so many good users of the ball with Braden Campbell and everyone else back there that Jake Lloyd's just going to swan, and he is going to have those, 5-10 minute runs in quarters where he
goes 30 points. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I like out of those two, McInerney, he does look a player, McInerney.
He does, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, I think he's likely to push up onto a wing more. So we'll see how that ends up.
Yeah, I think so too. Rob wants to know, were the performances of McGovern, Ralph Smith and Will Brodie on the weekend legit or fool's gold?
Well, Will Brodie was great, MJ.
He was
absolutely amazing. But what do we say? You've got to worry about the guys who aren't there.
Correct.
And now that Nate Fight's come out and said he's just going to play midfield, what does that mean to Will Brodie? Because I can't see Brodie being selected over Sarong or Brayshaw or...
No.
So I just think that means Brodie pushes out to a wing potentially.
Or he only plays as the first touch clearance winner and will have limited opportunities. Yeah.
His percentage on ground worries me at all as
that
well,
combination,
Brodie.
Agree.
Yeah, so I don't know whether he's going to have the ball-winning role, and I don't think he's going to get enough percentage on ground to actually be the guy that we all wanted him to be. So, but I mean, I might be wrong.
Yep, no, fair enough too. Ian wants to know, which SSP players are you keen on?
Pat McCartan.
Yeah, he's the one.
Well,
He's the
Pat
one.
McCartan, Jack Hayes. I've cooled a bit on Hugh Dixon.
Yep,
And I think
understand
Patrick
that.
Naish, I think, is interesting.
Yeah. If this continued curse at West Coast, where they just can't seem to get guys on the field for that long, carries on, by necessity he might, but even as early in the past 24 hours, Luke Shuey looks to be right for round one. So that's a big move and a big play for them. So yeah, I just can't trust that West Coast team. It's because there's so many injuries and so many variances. It's so hard to have confidence.
But I'll tell you what,
you know.
MJ, it's Patrick McCartan. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Patrick McCartan is the one out of all of them.
He looks
that has
so
the
good in
best-
that intercepting role. Yeah.
He's their fullback for the year. Like, it's
It's
ridiculous
Rampy
to
and the
say
McCartan
that.
boys that are going to get it done. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked excellent. Craig wants to know, is Cherry a trap? Do you think he'll be at least ruck sharing duties with Goldstein come season proper? What do you see that split as?
Yeah, but how can anyone who's priced sub 300,000 be a trap?
You can't.
So I think we've got to be careful with how we say trap at times, because like, what's the worst that happens? Like, Cherry plays full forward and Coleman, Jones and Goldstein play ruck in round one, and it's 300,000 and he gives you a 40. That's about his price. That's what you should be expecting.
Yeah, he doesn't
those
accelerate
guys.
in cash. The worst case scenario with Cherry is he plays one game, doesn't play the week after, but worst case scenario is trade him to the cow you missed.
But I watched the North Melbourne Rucks coaches talking about him. He seems like he's the number one choice at this point in time. So,
and whether or not that's just confidence they're trying to bring into the kid as opposed to the true narrative, but regardless, he's been exceptional in the preseason.
But we can only deal with what we've got. We can't be jumping to shadows all the time, can we?
Yeah. Beggars can't be choosers when it comes to sub 300K options this year. That's for sure. Speaking of some value options, John wants to know, what's your take on Jared Witts? See, a few ruck questions, because obviously things have changed for those that were looking for a Bruce option. So a few have looked different. Witts a viable option in a few of these formats for you, Rids?
He's a hit-out heavy ruck, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
I wonder if they're going to manage him early, but it will all depend on Joel. And so I just don't know, MJ. Witts, I wouldn't be paying top dollar for Witts, but
No.
he's value. He could easily have 50 hitouts a game, and that's half your points to 100. Like,
that's all it takes, isn't it?
Yeah.
It takes the right matchup in the right weather conditions in the right game styles colliding.
And what champion data, like what angle champion data watch the game on as well, because like I owned him a couple of years ago in a super coach, okay, where I swear black and blue that hit out went to his teammate, but champion data didn't think so. So who knows at the end of the day? But I mean, why not? If you've got a hunch, you've got a gut feel. I tell you what though, MJ, I'm going to throw a name at you. Darcy Fort. Is there any reason why everyone's overlooking Darcy Fort?
I don't think there's a reason why people are overlooking. I don't even think they've been looking at him, to be fair. The matchup's nice.
Darcy Fort, well, he left Geelong to go up to Brisbane. He's also got a number one ruck that's very, very much a time, like he's probably a 60% guy.
McInerney,
so Darcy Fort would be a 40% time in the ruck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We know he can clunk a mark.
They need a tall inside forward 50, and the options of how that ball gets in there is very, very good, that Brisbane midfield.
And so I reckon Darcy Fort will be against the second ruck of the opposition. The majority
so that's Hayes this week. So round one, Port Adelaide is who they come up against. So Hayes, if he does get named for Port Adelaide, is who he would come up against.
Yeah, so I mean, someone like a Darcy Fort might be a better value than a Jared Witts.
Yep.
But again, that's if you like Jared Witts, there's no reason why you shouldn't have him.
No, Gold Coast take on West Coast for what it's worth, and it's the final game of the round. So there's a few value rucks through there. I know we've talked a lot about Bruce this season and a bunch of other guys, but he's not the only guy you can kind of look at that it's a potential value one.
Another guy. MJ, you're big on this guy. What about Ivan from Richmond?
I really like Ivan Soldo in a couple of formats, especially AFL Fantasy. If you've been bullish on Bruce, Soldo's gone 70, 75, 80 in a ruck sharing role with Nane Curvis, let alone when he's been the sole ruck. Up against DeConning at Carlton, round 1, as a 1 week play, you actually make a little bit of money if you chip it down or all the way to Bruce in week 2. For me, it feels like a pretty easy option to, if you don't want to go up to a Marshall, you don't want to go up to a Witts, you don't want to go up to the big Gawn and Grundy combination. I really like Soldo this year. It helps me with the structure. So I have Soldo at R2 at the moment because it gives me the midfield premiums I want.
Exactly. So there are options.
And maybe that's an interesting way to end it, because Ian's got a nice little question, because it's looking at combinations. It's never the 1-for-1. It's always about the combinations. So for Dream Team, he's got an interesting dilemma between these two combinations. Taranto and Kelly, or Took versus the value of Heaney, Butters, Dusty, Treloar. Which of those two combinations do you like more?
Option 2 by the length of Flemington Straight.
Why is that?
Well, Took's absolutely a top few
Captain
midfielder.
option.
It doesn't matter who you. Well, he. Let's just go straight away. Second thing is he is a captain option. There's no doubt about that. Okay, he's a lot more fun, and there's enough noise coming around the Butters to go. You know what? Or a Heaney. They're both 90, 95 types in the forward line. I don't think there's any points more expected from Taranto early days.
No, I think he's
95.
priced maybe 3 to 4 points per game more than what he's priced at. It's very minimal, if anything.
Yeah. So, and that's just A, it's safer, but B, there's a lot more points, I think, potentially.
Yeah. And this is coming from people that are big fans of Josh Kelly too. So,
we love Josh Kelly, mate.
No slide that way.
I think Josh Kelly could potentially go 120 this year.
I feel like
it's in combination.
Yeah, well, that's right.
I can guarantee you, though, that Took Miller will go 120.
Yeah, it feels like injury is the only thing that's going to get in his way in 2022. Hey, Red's made an absolute power of effort from you, not just on this episode, but right throughout the preseason. So I thank you for your work on this episode and the whole preseason, mate.
And I don't have to talk about Braden Bruce anymore for the next week.
Not for a week, but after round 1 is over, if people's R2 have not gone to plan, then maybe it'll be an interesting one to look at. If you want to go and check out any of the articles that have dropped over the past couple of days, you can check it out at coachespanel.tv. We'll also be doing some team reveals of some of the coaches panel across all of the formats. They'll be dropping right throughout the week. And then in the next day or so, our Patreons, any level from a breakout, cash cow, or premium tiers, you will be getting the rookie guide, 70 pages of analysis around all of the big rookies for your 2022 fantasy season, their scoring prospects, their job security, and what they're actually like as players. We've done that heavy lifting for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Just jump on at coachespanel.tv, follow the links to become a Patreon supporter. It's just one of the great initial benefits you get outside of knowing you're helping the Coaches Panel do what we do every single week here, talking fantasy footy. So that's it. That's our last podcast before the preseason gets underway. There's more to come at coachespanel.tv. Heaps of hidden access and groups for our Patreons to get involved. And there'll be some videos and Twitter spaces dropping over the next couple of days. Thanks for doing the preseason with us. We hope you found it enjoyable and informative. And we can't wait for the season proper to get underway this Wednesday night.